Hello, everybody. I can see in the chat that people are talking about working on their Reaper Challenge League miniatures. Excuse me. So just in case we have someone new, I'm pretty sure that Quindy will post a link to information about the Reaper Challenge League. If anyone in chat wants to describe it a little more, my recollection is that it takes place on Discord. Someone say yes or no to that one. Hey, Tyler is tired. Quindy, Zachariah, I am, Zodiac, or Kodiak. I don't know why I said Zodiac. Kodiak 716. I think that's everyone who's been chatting away. Baba Took 4 confirms that it is on Discord, and there's points for various types of things. It's encouraging you to paint what you want to paint, but giving you that little extra push of motivation. So it can be certain, I think, character classes or like a unit or various different things. Maybe there are other color things. I'm getting text for some reason. But the goal is like you pick which miniatures you want to work on and how you want to do it, and you're just trying to get a lot of points. Yes, as my fuzzy kitty says, it's encouragement to burn through your piles of potential so that you can add new things to your piles of potential without guilt. I think, yes, the rules are on the Reaper Discord as well as the link that Quindy just posted. So if you go to the Discord, I suspect there's like a subsection or something, and you will find it there. I have been to the Reaper Discord, not recently, obviously, but even if it had been recently, I don't remember things, so I would totally not remember exactly where it is. All right, I'm going to switch over to my other setup. Let's get a little more light in the situation. And hopefully I'm set up well. I had a bit of a late start today, so I didn't test quite as much as I usually do. I didn't think of doing this before Easter because I'm really bad at preparing for holidays. But I had a show the day after Easter, and I've always joked around about the Easter dragon making more sense than the Easter bunny because, you know, dragons do lay eggs and they can transport around a little more. Plus, I had a couple of these guys prepped, and I've been wanting to paint them on the show, so I thought it would be fun to explore like a Easter pastel spring kind of palette. So that was 2 weeks ago. I wasn't able to stream last week. And it ended up being more challenging than I thought. So it was kind of an interesting exercise in thinking you know how a color works or whatever, and then finding out you have to do a little more mixing or play around. And even now, looking at him, a little later, I can see that some of these areas where I've done the lining, the deeper shadow, those are probably too saturated. Our goal with shadows is to make them appear as if, and the tip of my brush just fell off. That's hilarious. Okay. We won't be using that one, I guess. It's on the floor somewhere. I'm sure I could glue it back, but, so this kind of, lining, which does replicate, occlusion shadows, the shadows where things hang over other things. It's hard to make it happen on my desk because there is very much light. But if you look at something that's on your, whatever surface you're next to, you've got a coffee cup or something, you'll see a little line of darkness. Or if you look at someone wearing a belt, the edge of the belt is thin, but it will still cast a shadow onto their pants below where the belt edge is. That's a lot of what lining is doing. We exaggerate it sometimes or put it places where it wouldn't necessarily show because it helps visually break the different areas of a miniature up and help people see them more quickly, especially when you're in tabletop mode or on a contest shelf. So I was putting that in. I was putting these. I don't think it's terrible as the shadow, but as the little line, I think I need to dull down the intensity because colors that are lighter, but also colors that are brighter, that are more saturated, appear to come towards you and attract attention, where colors that are darker and duller recede. Actually, hold on. I had some visual aids. So these, before I, This is plugged in and I'm catching on the cord. Before I cleaned up last week, I swatched out the colors I had used. I ended up using very little of these. And if you look at this in isolation does not look like, those two don't look super saturated, but in the context of the other pastel colors, they are. So those were the colors that I was using. I feel like I'm going to end up throwing blue in as well, since I haven't done his wings or his head. There's space for more pastels. Was not my original intention to be like totally rainbow. And then this is a really quickie value chart I painted up like 13 years ago and then kept. So it's, you know, black. There really is white paint there. It's hard to see. So that's pure black. That's pure white. And these are probably like misty, rainy, whichever ones. So this is a 6-point value scale. 5 or 10 is common, but I did a 6-point value scale. And you can see that the pastel colors are all over here, and they're like much darker than that, and it stops feeling like a pastel. But it also needs to be duller. We think of them as very, you know, Barbie, pretty princess, bright kind of colors, but as I was mixing them, you know, this yellow in particular, I think I started out more like that, and it was just too bright. This is I was using a yellow, I wanted like a creamy yellow on the edge of these scale plates, and it didn't look pastel. It was too intense, even though yellow starts out being a very light color. So I ended up glazing over this with white. So if you want to see what a glaze with a light color looks like, most often we do them with darker or more saturated colors, watch the previous episode to this on, it's probably still on Twitch, but it's definitely on Reaper's YouTube channel. So I kept this and the paints. Well, and there's a chart where you can look, so saturation, and red is actually a very dark color. This chart would look a little different if it were like blue or green. But yeah, as you add more white, you lose saturation, and as you add more black to something, you lose saturation. Also, if you add its complement, and you can count grays, like if I was starting with this red and I wanted to make it more like this, I can add in this gray. And in fact, that is the way I was doing it last week. Most often, I will tend to desaturate with complementary colors. It makes for interesting colors, but pastels are, I don't know, pastels turn out to be a more specific category of color than I realized, and I feel like the gray works the best. So these are the colors I had last week, which I did mention when I used colors, but we'll see if I mention this time. It's a mix of the main Reaper paints and some Pathfinder paint. Pathfinder has a lot of paints that work well for this. I'm concerned I now have things in the view of the camera that I won't like, but I guess we'll find out. So I was doing wet blending, and I still have some sections to go on him. Let me see if I can find a replacement for that brush that missed. And I can look through chat too. Kodiak 716 describing the Reaper Challenge League in more detail than, or more coherence than I managed. You paint different miniatures for different categories. Most have to be Reaper Mini. I do duos and trios, team ups to paint all the same mini, since peer pressure is a big motivator for me personally. So that'll be you and 1 or 2 other people are painting the same figure. And entering like as a group. Reaper posted a link to find out more about the Dungeon Dwellers RPG if you weren't aware that Reaper had a role-playing game in progress, which weirdly enough uses Reaper figures. You can go check that out. Hi Bob and Julie. Green Users is here. Quindy is facepalming because the link about the Reaper Challenge League has all the 2022 info, and we'll be adding it to her list to update with more current information. So keep that link. More current information is coming soon. And then Kodiak says it's mostly for fun, but you can spend the points that you earn on raffle ticket entry to get raffle prizes, which I'm gonna guess are miniatures and or paints, or in some other way miniature related. I'm gonna go way out on a limb and guess that. Since I do work for Reaper, I would not be eligible for such things, so I don't pay attention to that aspect. Not that I don't enjoy a good challenge. There was a couple years ago Oh, yeah, quad color challenge. You can only paint with 4 colors of paint. And I enjoy that kind of limitations like that. Like I have to paint this pastels, or I can only use these 4 bottles of paint. Those can really be a lot of fun and help improve your skills and help you get going. Because sometimes you just get paralyzed by all the choices. Like, you know, that might be partly what's happening with the Challenge League and people's piles of potential, is you have so much on your pile of potential. It's like, but I want to paint that one, but I want to paint that one, but I need to paint this one, but I need... And then the categories and the other people participating in the Challenge League will help you narrow that down and actually get you started instead of paralyzed by indecision. I had added some yellow as well as white to this to make like a minty green. We need more minty green. Did I change the actual green? I think I had to change like everything. So he may not match exactly, but he's a rainbow dragon, so we don't care. Sometimes we get too stressed out about matching a color exactly. Like even if you have an army color, if it shifts just slightly, like if you looked at an actual army, particularly in a non-industrial time frame, there's people have been fighting for different lengths of time, so their uniforms are going to have different levels of wear and tear and be different colors. Like I'm pretty sure there are descriptions from the Civil War talking about just that kind of thing and how they were scrounging for materials to even you know, make the uniforms. So it wasn't like it was everybody had the exact same blue or gray. Now, from the point of view of playing a game on a tabletop, you probably want to be in the ballpark, sure. But it's, you know, we can get way too stressed out about being matchy-matchy, and then your paint gets discontinued and your life ends, and you probably can find one that's close or figure out how to mix one that's close, but you may not be able to get the identical one. There are different pigments, so there's lots of different blue pigments. If the paint that you loved that got discontinued used one that not a lot of other companies are using, you won't always be able to mix the exact same colors that they mixed. So the other value of keeping this is partly to show you guys, but it also, see, look, this seems very light on the palette, but when I put it here, it is definitely not. So, more white. Tyler the Tired. Spend points, get store credit, buy more stuff to paint. It's the cycle of life. That seems like a good plan. Because white, I find, tends to be a little... White paints tend to be a little thicker, a little more viscous, chalkier. I think people all use different terms. I very often find that I need to add some water to a paint with a lot of white in it, or that I've mixed a lot of white into, even if it is my plan to use it like as full strength and as opaquely as possible, which is indeed my plan. Yeah, I need that yellowy one, and I'm not ready to switch over to blue. I'm gonna bet this is too dark as well. Oh, it's pretty close. Just a little wafer thin mint of white. But something like this is my recommendation if you're working on a larger project and you do kind of want to have an idea of colors you mixed. My first tip is to try to keep it to 2 color mixes. So if I only mix this in white, and I make a note of that, or I only mix this and this, it doesn't have to be simple colors, I can start mixing those 2 together until I get, you know, it's just a question of finding the ratio that I originally made to match something. So if you find color mixing very challenging, that is a helpful tip to start out, is just use 2 things. Or if I was going to make, what's a nice example here? So say I had to mix this color, but then I want to turn it into something more like this to be my pastel shade for my yellowy colors. I could make a note of the two colors I used to mix this and make a little swatch, then add my white and have an additional swatch so I know what my, what color to mix to match my base color as well. If you are so inclined to be into mixing. We need just like a whole bunch of white over here for adjusting. But my other suggestion is to stress out about it less. Like if I don't get, let's say I'm not sure I am going to paint this exact same color pattern on its head, but if I don't get it exactly the same as the leg, well, no one can hold his leg up to his face to check me. So chances are most people aren't going to notice a slight variation of color. As long as I get in the ballpark, that's usually all it takes to do the trick. And if you can't get in the ballpark, you can start shifting the stuff you already did to match the stuff you just did. So it's people get way too stressed out, and I've been there. I'm people, sort of. So I get it. I get why it happens. I'm just trying to encourage it to happen less. It's weird. It still doesn't match. What did I do differently? Let's put more yellow in. I just want to make sure that is a little more greeny and yellowy than teal, because that is what's making the little curved parts look more curved, stand out more, because of both the value and the color difference. If that makes sense, which it probably doesn't. It feels like such a long time since I've been hanging out with you guys. So what happened last week is I am taking new medication because I'm old, and the side effects were kicking my butt. They seem to have... There's still one that's kind of bugging me, which is making my feet swell, which is very annoying. It feels like none of my shoes fit, but it is what it is. RoGR subscribed for the 32nd month. Thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. I don't know what I'm doing, really. I waste paint so you don't have to. I think even this one wasn't straight out of the bottle, but I could be wrong. Oh, maybe it was. I did not end up using a lot of that one, though. And I think this is where I've been putting gray in. So you see that it's still just using white doesn't always make exactly a pastel color, because sometimes it still seems too saturated. I mean, that's pretty close, but I might lob in just a little gray. I have rainy gray, and I'm using pure grays for this because I don't want to introduce other colors that I don't necessarily know what they will do to my mixes. Sorry, I got a goopy lid. Get rid of that while I can. And when you do mix in a color that's kind of, like if you're mixing complementaries or making a big value change, you want to be pretty conservative with your, so that, there's like a big blob on the end. I can kind of tap a little bit off over here if I'm not sure of the effect it will have, and put it in, and then come back and get a little more. So you always want to start with the less powerful, the lighter, the brighter color, and mix your darker, more intense, stronger colors into that, in that little tippy toe way. Because if you start the other way, if I started with this, the amount of purple and white that I would have to mix in to get to here would be crazy. So I don't want to do it that way. Now, the Did I go too desaturated? I got that one, but the other one is a little more intense. Maybe it uses... No, it's this purple. So color mixing doesn't have to be completely horrifying and terrifying. So last year, and I think it was pretty close to before ReaperCon, I did a show, and then there's a post on my blog that goes with it about if you are traveling or you have a very small setup and you just want to have a small number of paints and do a lot of mixing, I suggested the colors that I would pick for that and how to find those from your current paints if you already do have a selection of paints. But I never really went back and did like a straight up mixing show. So I like to just talk about mixing stuff as we go. Like this is the not conservative way to do it. If I was afraid that this would have a big impact on changing this color mix, I should put it over here and put the little dab in. But apparently I'm not. And then, so what we actually want to end up shading with, I think, is this. And desaturated. So pastel colors do not sell well, so I could not... I like to, when possible, go to my shelf and grab pre-mixed things, especially for the show, because it's quicker. Now you're just watching me mix colors, and I guess it's watching paint not dry. It may not be the excitement that you came here for. Although if you came here for excitement, hi, you're new, and you're probably going to want Anne's show or Lucas' show on Wednesday. Anne does stuff every day during the weekdays, starting at 11:30 Central Time, which is Reaper time. So we all live in Reaper time, even though none of us are actually in Reaper time. I don't think any of the streamers, other than Reaper streamers, are at Reaper time. Hey, prophecy painting. All right, so do I have everything I need? I don't know that I do, because I also need some of this color, which pretty sure is based on that. Also, for people who are new, I shake my paints right before I start the show, so the amount that you see me shaking them on stream is insufficient to the amount that they should be mixed. And I encourage you to mix your paints more vigorously than what you see here. Well, I'm not getting the same colors at all. So this will be very interesting. I mean, I could make it match, but again, I feel stressed out, like I'm being so boring. May I ask how long your paint lasts? I have some that are 20-ish years old. If I maintain them, so this brand specifically is mostly what I own. If I run maintenance on them, they will last at least that long. I have some... And I know they're that old because I bought them at the game store that I worked at, and they have the labels from the game store. So I do know their vintage pretty well. And by maintenance, I have a blog article on this that I think Quindy will find. And I'll see if I can find some paints that demonstrate some of the issues and maybe do a show or a video or something sometime. But at least every other year, but once a year is preferable. I go through all of them. I pop this top off and make sure stuff isn't gunked up. I add water if I need to. I stir. Shaking isn't enough for when things have started to thicken up. So I have like these stir sticks. You can get like plastic swizzle sticks and stuff too. And that's whether it's a twist off lid or whatever style the bottle is in. All of the same issues apply, other than, twist off bottle is not going to get paint gunked up in the thing. Maybe that brush is too big. Any idea why the labels fade to nothing? They never hit the sun. I don't know if the printer has changed, but for many years it was a heat based printer. I kind of like what they use at the store to do receipts. So heat is somehow involved in the process, and some of the labels printing seems to fade more than others. I feel like the newer labels don't do that as much, that may be a different process. Most of the ones I have out here are newer labels. This one's clearly an older one. And that's because a lot of the paints that I use on the show are from the Learn to Paint kit, and I got a set of that I set aside just to make sure that I always have that available. This is a color I replaced recently, is why that one looks good. This one, but I've had some that have faded to the point where I've had to write the color name and number on it with a pen. But again, some of those ones that I mentioned to you that I know exactly how old they are because I bought them in my local store and the price stickers are on, it's not like all of those faded and it's the fading. I can, date the label by how faded it is. I've had ones that were 10 years newer than that have faded. To my knowledge, Reaper does not sell replacement labels. And so I paint for Reaper, but I'm not actually a Reaper employee. So I can answer. I've been going to conventions and painting Reaper miniatures and stuff for like many, many years. So I can't answer a lot of kind of Reaper company questions. But just to make it clear that I am not an official representative and I may not know the answers to all questions. But that one has come up before, and I believe they said that they do not. Because they'll print them. They'll print like hundreds of, they're making a batch of mint green. So they print hundreds of mint green on a strip. And then there's a machine that it goes through, that it pulls the labels off the strip and attaches it to the thing, and it goes around so that it sticks this down. There's really no way to print out like just the labels you need or just the labels I need, or have a big batch, like keeping around boxes and boxes of printed labels. That's why they print them as they need them, so that they don't take up the space with it. So I don't think there's really a practical way to do that. There may be people on either like the forums, or I know the Discord is more active now than what I remember. I mean, not the forums used to be the place to go. The Reaper forums, if you go to reapermini.com, there's a link to some forums, and you can find a lot of information there. You could check the pinned posts in some of the forum groups. It may be that someone has done like a home program of, if you use these Avery labels, you can print out replacement labels. That is something I might also ask around, because I choose to live with it, and I'm okay with my handwriting, even though my handwriting is really crappy. But I know that some people are going to want their possessions to look very clean and crisp and uniform, and so that kind of thing matters to them. You are not alone if you are that person, but I am not that person. So, well, okay, in an ideal world, I'd love if all of that were true, but I accept that I don't have the time to make my world ideal. I barely have the time to make my world crappy. So when I was talking about, if you change your color mixes on a subsequent day of painting, and they don't match what you did before, you can tweak what you did before instead of stressing out about your color mixes. So I will give you an example of that. I mixed a more blue purple for these shadow areas this time, because I felt like this purple was really standing out. So I can come back in the parts I already painted and introduce that to kind of tone down how intense the purple is. And then I feel like I need something in between there. Maybe I did use this pretty much straight up, one of these. 491 Phantom is asking when the basic Learn to Paint kits will be restocking. So you mean like core skills and level up? How long have you been looking? Because my recollection is that they do those pretty quickly. And if they're not, it probably... So, how long have you been looking? Because the only holdup would be paintbrushes. I think everything else is made in-house. And they have like a whole setup of people where people can kind of do a assembly line putting them together, and that is regularly assigned as someone's job if they are running low. So they may be low on paintbrushes would be my guess, if it's been more than a minute. It's been off and on for a couple of months. Then where are you looking? Like on the Reaper site, or are you looking at a third party? Because what third parties keep in stock is like up to them. But I suspect you're just having really bad luck, and you come back and look, and there were some, and then they're gone again. Because I don't feel like they've been out of stock for months. But Quindy is giving you an email address that you can write to a person who will be able to answer that question more authoritatively. I mean, it's not impossible. There's like a problem with the website or something that someone hasn't noticed, and they're there, and it's just not showing it. But since neither Quindy or I work for Reaper, she's giving you the deets to find the people who do and can more answer your question with more information. I wrote the Learn to Paint kit, so if you have questions about what's in it, I am a good person to ask. But questions about its on the production side, I am not a good person to ask. I know all that stuff about the assembly line because I go to Reaper periodically, and they show us that stuff. Like right after I wrote the Learn to Paint kits, and they ended up being like way more popular than I had expected, and the people who they had to set up this little section for didn't all seem to be delighted about the annoying task of assembling these kits, because you got to pick out 11 different bottles, and then the second kit has an empty bottle as well, and the paintbrushes and the dudes. I felt kind of bad that I was making their lives hard. But happy that so many of you are enjoying it. So I can also tone down this previous purple a different way. Whether it will 100% be compatible with the way I did it before, I guess we'll find out. So I can take a bit of like pure gray or a contrasting color or something else that's gonna, almost anything else is gonna tone down a color if you put it on top of it, other than something very bright. So I'll come, let's do the line on this arm. And it may be working better than the way I was attempting to do it. And you can see it's just kind of toned down the intensity of that reddish purple that's really just sticking out from a shadow area, and we don't want things to stick out from a shadow area. So what I had worked on with him the previous episode, I had done like one pass like this of the wet blending. So like how I just did under this wing. And And there's parts where it's patchy and stuff. The vast majority of paint colors in the Reaper line, at least, are going to require 2 coats for full coverage. 491 Phantom has been looking at the Reaper site using a referral from Art of Mike Disney. Babatuk is asking if the questioner is European or Australian based, they'd be slower with stock since they import it there. And that is true. So the UK hub, there's a hub in the UK and Australia, and they don't make everything there. They get products shipped to them. So they need Reaper in America needs to make it and then get it shipped over. And I'm sure that they try to keep stock levels reasonable, but it's not always easy to predict what people are going to be into. Quindy says she noticed that Core Skills was out of stock last week and didn't realize it had been that long. I know some things are on order and just waiting to arrive. Something in the kit might be in those restocks. Yeah, so they don't make the bottles. So if they're running low on paint bottles, they may have decided not to make kits. And then paintbrushes, there have definitely been times in the past they try to have like a backup paintbrush option that they keep some around for just the situation, but it's probably just a boat from China that is taking longer to get here than one might expect. The miniatures are no longer a holdup, and they no longer do substitutions. If some of you got your kits a long time ago, you might have had not exactly the same skeleton or whatever as was in the pictures, because they used to have to substitute in because they got all the bones from China. But now that they're doing Bones USA, I think the Learn to Paint kits were like the first thing that they switched over to, so they would not have to worry about this anymore. I'm guessing if they had said something about a delay on one of the Reaper shows, that one of you would have been there and know about that and would be sharing that in chat. So I'm guessing that no one has any additional intel at this time. But I will see if I can remember to ask myself. I mean, certainly we want to make sure it's not like a computer issue. That stuff is there and it's just not saying it's there. That would be bad for everyone. Four 491 Phantom says both the Core Skills and the Core Skills bundle are out of stock. That's probably because if they can't make Core Skills, they're not making any more bundles for it, would be my guess. Where's this one? Something kind of in between those two. I mean, our preference is that you buy directly from Reaper, and that is how you'll get kind of the bonus things of the month and whatnot. But there are, there's like Miniature Market and Amazon and Fantazation, I think is the name of another one, are all online stores if you're a US based customer that carry Reaper products, and that they may have stock still from when they last ordered, even if Reaper is out. But if you're trying to get the cool things, that is probably not what you want to do. I got a lot of water on my brush. That purple did not seem very effective. I get this arm curling. This is like a sphere and it's really rolling down under there, so I want to make sure that the shadow there creates that sense of roundness and tone down the shadow over here if I need to. Like maybe I'll put more blue this part. So we're leaving the purple in the deep areas. And if I were painting something other than a cutesy little dragon, I would probably mix these two colors together, like where things are joining up, just to make it easier to do the transitions. But as I mentioned last time, if you want to practice wet blending, doing it on surfaces that are all broken up by fur, scales, or what have you, certainly makes your life a little less harrowing. You can cheat a little more. Well, not cheat, just not have to work as hard, I guess really is what I mean. My apologies, I touched the camera. No, I still have not gotten the thing I keep saying that I'm going to get. We realized on Saturday, we forgot that's our D&D night, and this is really supposed to be the arm that my husband puts his phone on to do our Zoom call. So he had to be just a little icon, because I have still stolen his stuff. And then the eraser trick, if paint is still wet, you just dampen a brush, and bye-bye. No more problems. And down here may actually be recessed enough that I do want to go a little darker than what I have been doing. Fancier blending kind of thing is also easier if you use a nice brush. I was still doing big picture stuff, so I wasn't switching away from the wonder of the hooky ended synthetic brush. So that little hook is going to make it harder for me to manipulate the paint exactly the way I want to, if I'm trying to be precise. So I'm going to go back to not being precise for a while, because there's still so many parts of him that don't have color yet. So let's fix that. Make him pretty. So like there's an edge now, and I can just kind of take the brush and zigzag between, and then if I'm like, okay, I lost too much blue, I can bring that back and zigzag. And that's wet blending essentially. And then I can say, okay, well, I needed to have some of this yellow highlight color, and I can add that. Or I can wait for things to dry, and I can come in and layer that on top if I'm concerned about, I'm already happy with what I have and I don't want to mess it up. I don't have to try to do everything all in one go. The more you can do in one go, the more time you save. This is a lot of what people like about wet blending. But you don't have to do it that way. his tail to go all the way purple. Trying to make a rainbow dragon after all. So let's fade that all out to purpleness. Oh, my purple looks like it is a little thick, actually. I haven't really done the spine at ease, so I'm not sweating those. And does that look a little flat because it's just white? Yes, it does. So now we'll put some yellow in the purple, or light pink, or whatever it is. And that'll be like a little bit peachy. But I had to rinse my brush because I don't want the peachy further down. With wet blending, whenever I rinse my brush, I'm going to put some paint back on it before I come over here, or my damp brush is going to start lifting up paint. Because it's like the paint is going to want to go to the area with the least paint, I guess. I think there's a name for that. You know how water does that. So I don't want a place where I'm trying to move paint around to be the area with the least paint. I'm going to have to come in and fix all that, but that is fine. That's what I mean about you don't have to get it in one go. There will come a point where I have to stop touching this and let it dry. Or I will start lifting up paint for a different reason, because it will be all sticky and tacky. But I don't think we are there yet. On that side at any rate. This side, so I can see here is dry, but there's still shininess here. I would be dumb to go sticking my brush in there. Not saying I won't do it, because maybe I'm dumb, but I would be dumb to do it. I do want to work on this transition a little more. But I think, yeah, I can see that it's getting a little sticky. So that's going to have to wait. We'll cycle back there, but it's not like we don't have some naked dragon to work on. Like there's just a little white spot for no apparent reason from last time. I think I saw another one of those earlier. Yeah, up there. Like how did paint not go right here? I don't know. So the bot just suggested looking for the Learn to Paint kits with the link, and it's like helpful. Babachook says the bots are becoming sassy. And Queenie says it's always sassing her. Zachariah, I cannot lie, I like big color and watching paint dry. You like his big booty too? He's got a big booty. Hopefully by now some of you have seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Hopefully by now. I know that Mario came out and that was not great timing for the D&D movie. I wish there had been like another week or so between those two, because, you know, it's not surprising that the audience, there's going to be some crossover on the audience for those. Not really painting the top of that wing yet, I don't think. I guess Figuring out how I'm going to connect the wing color to the body color is probably something I should think about. This is not one of those minis where I planned everything in advance. Not that there are loads of those, but I did do a series on where I took a color scheme out of a magazine and showed how I would adapt that. Figure it out, adapt it, and then apply it to a miniature. And that whole miniature is painted on, was painted here on the show and is in the archives on Reaper's. Oops. You know what? I'm just going to put this here because I keep forgetting it's over there. I tend to, so while I'm not at all anal about my broken down, tragic looking paint bottles, I'm extremely anal about how I arrange my palette. So where the paints are when I'm using them is of great importance to me. And we gotta work a little purple in there. It's gonna look weird. Hopefully he's staying. Wow, the color looks a little weird on my monitor. This is way more of like a peachy pink than like an orangey salmony thing. I haven't worked orange into him yet. I think orange is the color that I will not do since I'm already caving and I'm going to put blue on there, and that was my original plan. Would I put him down to do something? Well, who knows? Who knows? Kodiak 716. I want to, but it's hard going to movies with toddlers. Well, that is true. It is hard doing anything with toddlers. It is really fun if you get a chance to see it. I understand that it's going to be coming out on like digital, whatever, within a few weeks, because things come out so soon now. So if that is a more toddler-friendly way to be able to watch it, you will have that opportunity. So I like purple and teal because I like purple and teal, but it is interesting, and some of us joke around about having a cult of purple and teal. It is interesting that those two colors do blend in a cool way. I mean, you will get some cool blends out of it. So let me get a different scrap piece of paper for now. So let's take some, I think this was the bright purple. Think about that. And you get these really neat shadow colors when you do that. So that's the original purple. And that's the original teal. I don't know. I love it. It's like, is it blue? Is it purple? Is it green? Nobody knows. The cult of purple and teal is real. This is 100% an Easter Rocky Dragon because I think the Easter Dragon should be a thing. I'm trying to make it happen. I did start painting this the day after Easter, and then I wasn't feeling well last week, so I didn't make it back, but I don't care. I was also intrigued to discover that there was more challenge to painting pastels than I had expected. When I had the idea that morning, it's like, oh, I should paint that Easter dragon that I'm always talking about. And then when I sat down to do that, I'm like, hey, dang, painting pastel colors. The color range, like if I had a giant map of color and I was circling, okay, this is pastel or whatever, the what is pastel is smaller than I realized. So you got to get just kind of the right mix of desaturation, that's not a word, desaturation, and value transitions, or value combination, to make it feel genuinely pastel. I mean, I've talked so much about desaturating the other way to be all dark and dreary and thiefly and whatnot, that it seemed only fair to do the pretty color version of desaturation. And so I did. I'm honestly surprised as many people are here that you didn't just go, yeah, grow colors, goodbye. Or non adventure-y, fighty, tough character colors. Maybe this is why I'm so good at making characters who are so bad at combat. This is not, I mean, I played a fighter a few years ago, but it was dex based because I had like 2 scimitars and there was sort of a style thing I was going from, and then what her background was, it didn't make sense for her to like have trained on a strength level. So the rest of the group knew I was making a fighter, and they were expecting much more of a traditional meat shield type of fighter, and they were a little like, what? Why are you not stronger and tougher and wearing a lot of armor and standing at the front? That's not my vision. But for the past few years, I've mostly been playing characters where standing at the back is a big goal of mine. It's like, I'll be over here during this fight. I'll lob something in there. I'll help you out. I just really don't want to get hit. It does not turn out well for me. So I'm going to get that weird color at the margins, which is cool. And then go back to the main body approach. And what's happening on this side? Not a lot. I didn't really do much with that side the first time. Still using the annoying cookie brush. Which overall, I mean, I sometimes get some of these when they come out with supposedly as good as Kolinsky synthetic brushes. I will sometimes get one to test to see, because people always ask me that. It's like, well, I don't want to buy a Winsor Newton or a Da Vinci. And my answer is go buy a Winsor Newton or a Da Vinci. There's never going to be a synthetic that does at our scale the kind of precision that we want. I mean, I guess never say never. They come out with new stuff all the time. But it seems very unlikely to me that they will be able to accomplish this goal anytime soon, based on the currently available products. I would be fine if they did. I'm not out here trying to make Winsor Newton money. I think they are one of those companies that does kind of trade on their name and their legacy a little and upcharge things accordingly. But they're just my favorite brushes, and that's how it is. I still need a little blue over there. I don't know. I feel like some of my paints are a little sticky, so I'm gonna do a check. Even though this is a wet palette, I guess maybe because I have a few extra lights, or I don't know why. I live in a very humid place. There's no particular reason my paints should dry out within an hour, but here we are. Well, I have the big circles too, so the best way to use a wet palette is to keep the little drops like that. If you do this mixing type thing the way I do it, you created a larger surface area for evaporation to work on. And so it will. But then this was a thicker pool, so it wasn't getting goopy. Oops. I touched that thing, sorry. I've got my painting goggles on, so. And there I obliterated my mint green. That color does not want me to keep track of it. I do not know what's happening with that. It wants to be all mysterious and stuff. Yeah, let's get a little goopy. So I've been Zachary, I am about 25% of colors or less. I'm not sure what that's in reference to because I probably didn't look as soon as I should have been. Finesse fighters can be fun. I had a lot of fun with her. And she could shoot a bow like nobody's business too. I did a headshot once and then they were all like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, dude's a necromancer. So they brought him back to life, and dude's a necromancer, so then there were zombies. I'm like, all right, you don't gotta listen to me, but I'm making poor choices. I don't know why I'm looking at the paint, because what I actually want is a different brush. Supposedly as good as Clinsky. Yes, I should trademark that. Although I do think this is a clever name, Mimic, with a K for Clinsky. And, you know, if I was doing watercolor, I would probably be fine. Okay, well, that's a lot of hook, actually. But I could put that in hot water and get it back a little bit. When I first started taking, learning watercolor, stop it. I used synthetic brushes for a long time, and now I have, a couple. I've got one size 10. And if you ever want to feel better about the price you're paying for brushes, go look at how much a size 10 costs. I got it on sale and I had gift cards and stuff, so it wasn't as terrible as whatever you're about to see if you look up how much a size 10 brush costs. And it is not a Winsor Newton because it doesn't need to be. I am not as specific for watercolor. It is that's a good question. Escoda? I think it's an Escoda. But for miniature painting, I've just found that I have a very particular width and diameter to length ratio that I like. Again, I'm not particular about some things, but other things I am deranged. So there's that. I've just decided to accept it. My life that way. Alright, that's getting way too gray. Gray is not pastel. But it is on the little underside of his neck, so I'm gonna just live with that. do on his face? Let's do more straight up green. Babatute 4, it was in reference to you saying pastel colors are more limited than you thought. Yes. So there's like a little window of both saturation and lightness. So this is a light color, but this is very much a saturated color. So we gotta take that down to turn it into a green to use on his face. Well, apparently this is not a strong gray, and I can just drop it right in there. Although maybe that's too much. You guys watch my show because it's a great example of what not to do, right? Because that's what I'm aiming for here. This is all an illusion. No. My life is an example of what not to do on a variety of levels. And I'm okay with that. Somebody needs to be the cautionary tale, right? Now that's a pastel green. So we will compare it with the original for the difference in intensity. Maybe that one's put just a little back in. Yes, I like that better. That is a very spring feel to me. But then we will also need a lighter one. So I'll just do white first, and then we'll see what happens and why I'm probably not going to do just white. So this is very pastel. But it also kind of starts getting washed out. I mean, it may not be terrible that it's washed out. Oh, that was way too much. Now I'm going to have to get that green again. But I want the little point of his nose to definitely be something that draws your eye forward. So I want to also add yellow to that so it doesn't get too washed out. And this is an important tip for when you're trying to not have pastels. Like if you don't want pink, if you add just white to red, you're going to get pink. If you add white and yellow to red, you get more of a thing that maintains that it looks red. I don't have a darker green, so we're going to have to just use a little bit of the teal. Okay, I do have a darker green, but it's way over there. It's way over there. Which is not far at all. All right, so yellow. And I'm not even going with like, this isn't yellowy yellow. I could put just a little smidge of this in. So this is another example of pastel, not pastel, way too intense to be pastel. So it's light, it fulfills the one criteria for being pastel, but it is way too saturated and bright and in your face. If this goes too light, I may need that, but we'll find out. I do want it pretty light, though. Maybe just a wafer thin mint of yellow. I also have this yellow that is not as completely off the chain as the other one. And even just a little more white. Trying to get something that's very light, but also keep the idea that it's a color. Like if I need to, I can go pure white in places when I start doing the scales and stuff, but I want to have things be colorful. So if it gets too white, too many white highlights, it's not going to look colorful. Tyler the Tired. It's a good example of troubleshooting and problem solving. And that is, I very much like to do that on the show. That's one reason why last week when I decided, not last week, the week before, when I decided to work on this, I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not going to do test swatches or try to figure things out or make sure anything works. I'm just going to get some colors I think will kind of work and mix it, live on the stream so that people can see the process. Because I think it's easy for us to feel like people who know what they're doing just get there without any difficulties. And usually what knowing what you're doing means is you know how to course correct, or you have more ideas and more willingness to course correct than someone who is a little newer and would prefer to have kind of instruction to figure out what they're doing. Being able or being willing to take risks is kind of how you get to the point where it looks like you know what you're doing. And you have to have, like, if you watch this and you're like, I'm gonna sit down and mix some paint, and you think it's easy, I know that this goes with this and the color wheel says that and it shouldn't be a problem, and then you sit down and you try to do it and it does not at all go as smoothly as you hoped, don't freak out and assume that that's because you're stupid about color or you'll never be able to do this. And I've recently been reminded of this myself because I'm taking an oil painting class. So I've taken oil painting with this person before. If you've been watching the show a very long time, there was a day when I shared a painting I did last year. And I have not painted since that painting last year. Like, literally not at all painted. And I've barely been doing, just drawing or whatever even. So I never really learned the skill. So it's not like I'm back to riding the bike. It's like I got the tricycle out and I'm the bike with the training wheels on, and I'm still mastering the learning to ride. But so he does his demonstration and he talks things through, and it's all, it all makes a lot of sense, and it seems like in theory you're like, okay, I should be able to sit down, and I know I'm not going to get the same results that he does, but the process makes sense. I should be able to sit down and kind of do what he's talking about and get that done and have it not be too painful. And I have yet to even, so we're about to, this Wednesday will be the third episode. And we're supposed to be doing these like quick still lives that are color studies. So the point of it is to get like kind of the main thing in, to get to the point where you've got the miniature and you've got the base coat colors on, and then do the fiddly color shifting and adjusting. And so it's supposed to be about observing the different colors on that you can see on it, and where it goes from cool to warm and stuff like that. And I'm having so much trouble just getting to here's the miniature and the colors are blocked in, and I keep doing smaller and smaller things. It's like he gave us one that had like 5 objects in it, I think. And I tried twice doing one that had 3 objects in it, and barely got to the point of working on one of the objects. Last night I'm like, all right, I'm going to do just 2, even though compositionally 2 things is not great, but this isn't really about composition. This is about the color. And I got one of them, the main color part, it was an orange pepper. I got the main color part done, but I didn't get the stem done or anything. And the yellow pepper was just this sad, blocky shape thing. So after 2 weeks, I am still have yet to do the basic assignment, basically. While everybody else is, 3 or 4 quick paintings in. So I certainly, one of the reasons I like doing these courses is I get reminded of the challenges of being a student, so that I don't forget that when I'm talking to other people. And I understand the frustration. But it's kind of like, it doesn't matter that I've been doing this for 20 years and I know how to do all this stuff. Acrylic painting and oil painting are totally different, and then the way he paints is totally different from the way some other people paint. Like, no matter how much I think I know and how much I study, nothing's gonna replace the hand skills. If I don't sit down and do that, I can watch his video over and over and over again until the end of time, and I'm still not going to get any better at the actual doing it part. The only way to get better at the doing it part is, now you're going to be shocked, to do it. But what I realized a few years ago, that a lot of us are coming from backgrounds where studying was very helpful to something. Like if you work in the sciences or all kinds of fields, engineering, computers, stuff like the medical or legal fields. A lot of it is studying. It's lectures and reading books and inferring things, and it's just knowledge. And I think sometimes people approach mini painting like that. It's like, well, I'll just watch a lot of tutorials on wet blending or freehand or whatever thing you're trying to do, non-metallic metal. And I'll just watch videos and read articles and study and study and study. So then when I sit down to do it, it should go pretty well. Because, like, I've got all this knowledge. And it's like, the problem is it's not, the knowledge helps. But at a certain, really you need a little knowledge and a lot of practice is going to be preferable for skills like this to a lot of knowledge and not very much practice. Because you can start figuring stuff out on your own through the practice. Yeah, those purple paints don't seem to be staying as fresh. I'm looking at his backside because I feel like they don't have to match exactly, but I want kind of the overall pattern to seem like it's the same on both sides. So when I wrote a blog article where I talked about some of the mistakes I had made in my learning to paint journey, and that was certainly one of them. And the kind of pithy saying that I realized eventually is, you can't study your way out of failure. It's not that kind of test. The test, because it's not, okay, I got that color mix wrong and I had to do it again. And I'm not being graded on that. It's not that I need to get everything right the first time, or, okay, I didn't do the blending. I didn't paint the eyes very well. Okay, so just try again. Try harder next time. Like, it's not, you're not failing. Maybe you are failing, but failing is how you learn. It's like you got to have a different relationship with failure, I think, than you may have had if you were, had the kind of education where the grade made a big difference, not just what you learned in the process of study. So we need to cut ourselves slack, I think, is kind of what I'm saying, in a very convoluted, roundabout way. Gotta mix the awesome color that the two mix together with this part. Oh, there's a sad little cat. Hi, sad little cat. Is it dinner time? It's not dinner time. Oh, it is dinner time. You should address that to my colleague. Work more of that yellow back in. Well, and get it brighter. I think I did lose some of the value transitions here. Definitely want his little tail to stand out some. Hold on now. I know you're very tragic. Oh, are you locked in now too? No, you're not. If she, so I keep the door ajar because they'll want to go inside and out. But if she accidentally knocks it closed, then she gets all very upset about that. And I would have to pause and go help her. It is not easy being an old lady cat. She's mentioned this to me several times lately. She makes this sad little noise now. You probably can't hear it because it's quiet enough. It's just going to keep happening. Hi, Ella. Let me contact Kevin and he will give you your supper. Oh my gosh. Your tiny heart is breaking. Okay, I think the other one's working now. Let's see. See if that works for Kevin. They know when it is 4 o'clock. They're like, hello, this is the time of the food. Why is there none of the food? So I did that same saturation thing. It's not as noticeable. You can still see it there. When I lined in between the chest, this was like the first part I painted. I lined in between and around the chest plate. So the in between got toned down because I did a white glaze over everything. But there's some little parts there that need a bit of toning down. And if I want to come back in and line them again, they're going to need to be in something much less saturated. I made that under the chin part, that pinky color too. So I guess that's supposed to go on his little face as well, but no, I'm gonna try this green to teal. We'll see how that goes. I need to get the bigger brush back. His head is actually not very small. So this is, I think somebody already said in chat who did. This is Rocky the Red. There are 5 different poses. Well, 6 if the brush holder is available now. There's a pose of him holding out his front legs, and you can rest your brush on it. I actually have it over there. I should have grabbed it and brought it down, but I'm pretty sure that Quindy can give us a link to this guy in the store in case anybody has a hankering for one now that you've seen him. But there's a pose where he's got a dragonfly on his, sitting on his tail, and he's very miffed about it. There's one where he's doing the butt wiggle. If you have a cat, you're probably familiar with the butt wiggle. Like he's about to pounce. And what am I forgetting? Because I painted all 5 of these for the Kickstarter, so I should totally know what all the poses are. And yet, apparently, I do not. Well, he does some other stuff, too. Oh, treasure chest. There's one where he's guarding a little treasure chest. And that is quite adorable. And maybe I said 5. Maybe I just don't realize that I said 5. do have to work some teal in there because that's really just looking like it came out of nowhere. Quindy has confirmed that the brush holder Rocky is now available and that this one is called Scheming Rocky, which I can understand why. And he is available at the link that Quindy has said. 77920 is the stock number if you are watching later and you cannot see the links. And the Rockies are nice and chunky. If you, I did it worse than ever. If you have children or someone who's new to painting, this kind of sculpt where you don't need to have quite the precision is very accessible and appealing often. People tend to get intimidated by the idea of painting very small. It's like you kind of get them in once and then they understand how it works and they don't feel as bad about it. But if you try to start someone off with like a very small or very detailed miniature, that's not going to be as accessible to them as something like, I think there's a giant wolf. I think that's a great miniature too. Dire wolf that Jason Weeby did. And he's a good chunk of size. So I think he's a little more accessible as well. There's some, if you the person that you're painting with isn't likely to want to paint something that you can't use in your game, or they prefer, they don't like cartoony things. Reaper has tons of, big, impressive dragons, but there are plenty of kind of, I don't remember the official D&D size things for which one it would correspond with. If anyone out there knows more than I do about that, which is not hard, feel free to share. But there's some not intimidating sized dragons as well. Okay, that is very dark, even though it doesn't seem like it's very dark from over there. So this side of his head is tilted down, so even though it's pastel and everything, I don't want to use exactly the same brightness that I used over on the other side, because assuming the light's coming from anywhere in this region, it won't be reaching in there as much. So I had to make a little more of a shadow color. Even though I really do want it to be, more pastel. Light is still doing what light does. And I like the little bit of blue kind of on the under, or blue teal on the underside of the eyelid. I think that helps pop his eye out. Do I have a plan for what color I will paint the eyes? Oh my, no, I do not. Should I have a plan? Very much so. But that will be another day, I guess. If anyone has suggestions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will ponder whether I can do or how to do the requested eye color. Don't feel like I want to introduce the orange there. Maybe really bright blue? I don't know. I love the Rocky series, Polly. Polly has his cracker. Is saying how cute the Rocky series is. And I'm hoping that one day Gene will be able to make him a friend. And we can have like Bertha the Blue or Gerda the Green or something. So that we don't... Poor Rocky isn't just all alone out there. In Cute Dragon World, that he gets someone to play with and chase the dragonflies with and so on. Because everybody needs a friend. So I'm using some of the teal, like the more tealy mixes, just to, I don't know, it was looking overly uniform. Everything else is all color shifty. I don't know, it's hard to explain. So I guess what it probably actually is if you think about it, you think about whatever's around you right now, there's light bouncing all around. So even though, you know, the light is bouncing off of this and leaving whatever wavelengths that tell us this is like a dark red, depending on what paintbrushes I have around it, there or what paint colors, there could be little touches of that color. So it's not gonna be like pure, but there, some of the reflections can just might be taking on a slightly green tint on this side or looking a little more red on this side. And that doesn't just happen with shiny objects. It very noticeably happens with shiny objects. But it happens with a lot of things. And we're just not consciously aware of it a lot of the time. Because it's natural. I mean, we've been seeing things look like that our whole lives. So it's natural to see things look like that. But then when you're painting, you say you have a picture of a bird or a suit of armor or whatever thing, and you want to paint something that looks kind of like that thing, and you will ask yourself, what color is that? And that is not exactly the right question, because your answer to that, the part of your brain that answers questions like that, is going to say whatever the color is. We call it the local color. So if you had the color like in a neutral environment with white light, what color would it appear? So if I were to ask, you know, what color is this? My brain is going to say white. But if, you know, let's say my light is a little blue, and maybe there is, I don't know if I can get, it's there. I don't know if it's there strong enough that you can see it, that shadow is kind of pinky. The correct question is more, what colors do I need to use to paint this thing so it looks like that, not what color is the thing. Because what color is the thing is the question if you want to go buy a shirt that color. You just need to know kind of one color. What color do I use to paint something that looks like that thing is you don't paint just one color, because there are shadows. So at a minimum, you're changing the values. But if you also kind of switch up some of the colors, then it starts looking more natural and less plastic and Barbie dollars and stuff. Because I do all of that in my regular paint. I mean, I don't always add it as I go the way I'm doing here. I'll often just paint with the, okay, here's my range. And I may do something like, okay, I've got more purple in the shadows, and then I've used the yellow in the highlights. But then even at the end, I'm like, okay, he's got a red scarf, so I'll just put a little bit of red in the shadows later or something. Did you not get your dinner, baby? She did. She got her dinner, but she's gonna make sad noises anyway. So I may have to pick up a very sad little cat and switch to the camera, other camera. She does not respect painting. Or anything, really. She does not respect a lot of things. When it's snuggle time, it's snuggle time. That is the law of Ella. So how far down did I go with the green on the other side? About here, I think. So then, so I said the color that the thing actually is, like if you were trying to find what color would this be in a neutral environment thing. They call that the local color. And then the what color am I actually seeing kind of thing is called the perceived color often, but not always. I sort of feel like it should be the other way around. Don't go letting me tell you that the names of art things make any more sense than the names of a bunch of other things, because they certainly do not. Gotta define his little nostrils a bit more. Although that may be a project for the detailing stage, which I'm definitely not at. So his face, oh my gosh, it looks so lime green on my monitor. I promise you it is not lime green. It certainly does stand out. It may stand out too much. That pink green contrast is super effective because that's color contrast, and I was hoping it would be effective, but that's a lot. That is that's a lot. So we'll have to, I may just leave it for now, because I also wanted to do like green and blue in the wings, so there'll be some more green somewhere else. It won't be this like isolated crazy whack of green coming at you. But it may be that even though I did the desaturation thing, that the yellow and lighter green is still too saturated. So that may be part of the problem. So I could try doing the white glaze thing again that I did last week to see if that helps. Now I'm a little sad that I did not do a better job with the mold lines and stuff. But I might, I was thinking about whether some paint tricks could work on that, but I mean, once you know what a mold line is, it's really hard to convince people to see anything other than a mold line. So I don't know. No. That would work. Let's get a little more of this teal in and see if that helps. Knock back the, oh my god, how much green. Although I assure you that it is worse on the camera than it is in the person, but it's still pretty, still might be more intense. But this is, before I fix this, or maybe I should wait to fix this. This is an example of how you can use even fairly small differences in saturation to your advantage. Because here's the colors on the palette. Let's zoom in a little. Like this green is not, this is not a crazy bright green. on the palette, to me, it looks in context with the other colors. So I don't know if it's partly because it's kind of very isolated in location, and then partly because it's directly against its color complement, that it is really going ba-bam. But you can use that kind of thing to your advantage. You want to pick a focal point on your miniature, if not more than one, which is the place you want people to look the most or first. And one way to help do that is to work with the saturation of your colors. So you don't have to like massively change your color. You can just add a little bit. You know, if I was painting this green, add a little bit more green in the areas that I want to be the focal point, and see if I can, you know, draw people's eyes there a little bit more. That kind of thing. You don't necessarily have to do this much saturation contrast, but it's an example of how, even though there's not a lot of contrast and value on this guy, if I do the black and white thing on the other camera, is it worth doing? It might be fun. Let's do it. So is it that view? Yes. No, that's that other view. Hold on, I'm forgetting which of my things is named what. Let's try this button. There we go. So if I move this palette away, because the camera will undoubtedly focus on it. The camera loves that palette so much. If I move that camera away and we zoom in a little bit on my man Rocky. Come on, you can do it. Nope, you don't want to do it. All right, there we go. I'm going to flip through some different modes in the camera, so it's going to look super weird, but eventually we're going to hit black and white. I have no idea what the rest of these modes are for. I mean, I'm deeply curious to know, but I don't know. So if you look at him, overall, there's no value contrast between areas. This is a little bit lighter. His tummy's a little bit lighter. But most of the contrast, other than, you know, I'm trying to make some of the shadow areas deeper, and they're not very dark. This is much less contrasted than what I would normally paint something to be. So it's working almost completely on, like light and dark is a very important kind of contrast, and it's absolutely important that you start making your shadows darker and your highlights lighter. Almost all of us do not do that. I mean, no matter what level you're at, it's kind of an ongoing goal to keep pushing. But that is not the only kind of contrast we have. So we have contrast of hue, which is one that we think about a lot. You know, this color, the way the green was standing out next to the pink. So we think about that kind of contrast a lot. But saturation is a big one too, that you can use to kind of move the person's eye around, or go look more here, or, you know, don't look at this part where I didn't clean up the mold line, or the sculpt is kind of, you know, I had a bad cast or whatever. You can use tools like saturation for that. So there's one more mode that it does, and then we go back to normal colors. So the document camera absolutely does do weird things to color. This is now not a document camera, and I feel like the color's truer than that one, because yeah, that's some poison green right there. But it's still not exactly what I see, and I think that the yellow probably is too saturated. That it's just, it really has to be more of a creamy yellow than that. So I will go ahead and do the white glaze thing. If I can reach my, pardon my arm. And I did the exact same thing last week, where I thought I had a very mild yellow, but it ended up being overpowering like that. So I will actually document this, which, I mean, that just looks like a very light green. And it seems, you know, in context with that to me, but it needs to be more like a linen And then white, or this Osiris sand is probably what it needs to be. Or maybe like a mix of that and the vampiric pallor that has a little bit of green in it. So when I paint next time, I will hopefully remember that. I mean, I didn't learn it this time, so we'll see. But it gives me an opportunity to fix the problem the same way again. Actually, I did not. I see this ring is from last week. I didn't use pure white. I think I used probably used this straight out of the bottle, the Ashen Rose. In this case, I am going to use pure white because I think I want everything to just take a chill pill, essentially. Well, everything on his face. I'm not going to touch the body or anything. So it is. I mean, I don't glaze with a light color very often. I think it was years before I even attempted it. And you have to be careful that you are doing more of a glaze idea than a wash. So in a wash, the dilution isn't really the difference between those two things. Everybody does dilute them to, not everybody, but you know, some painters will say a glaze or a wash is X amount of water, and someone else will say, no, it's Y amount of water. It's transparent. That's kind of the unifying thing that all the painters are agreeing on, is that it's thinned to some degree of transparency because the point is to let some of the color underneath show. And different people or different techniques or different colors may require different degrees of transparency. But the main difference between a glaze and a wash is how you apply it. And I have water here and I can't find it. This is why I'm seeming distracted and looking around. I have a little bottle of water, and there's like really no place it would go other than this desk. So this is very mysterious. There it is. So if I don't have enough, I use some of this brush on sealer. It's like the medium part of paint. It'll help me get a smoother coat, and it helps keep the paint, like if you mix really thin paint and you don't like the way it feels all watery and like you feel like it's harder to control, using that helps with that. I could use all that. It would probably dry kind of, I wouldn't even say semi-gloss, like eggshell. It would probably look eggshell rather than super matte. So what I want to do, and I always want to do this with glazes and washes, because of that whole some colors and blah blah, that it's not a uniform, I always use X amount of paint to X amount of water, is I want to do that, and I want to feel like I see a slight transition, a slight deposit of, color in the case of this. In this case, I'm looking to see, does the text look slightly obscured because it's pure white. Well, here, I have little pictures. Let's see. What happens if I do it on a picture? And that probably is what I would start with as a glaze. So then the other difference is if I'm doing a wash, you get a big old clump of stuff on your brush. You get it's just, and if you touch it to things, it starts coming off, and then it does what it's doing on my hand, which is sink into the crevices. And that's what you want. You're trying to bring out the texture of fur or something like that. So you're trying to get a darker color to go into the crevices. That's not what you want with a glaze. A glaze is like a camera filter, where I'm trying to put the whole, like a thin layer over this whole photo to make it look faded or old-timey or something. So the way you do that to begin is not having a big old clump of stuff on your brush. It's good to use the biggest brush you can control with for both washes and glazes. And we'll pretend that I can do with this brush. This brush is a little big maybe, but it should work. So I can still, if I want to still put it in there and get all that gunk, I can, but then I have to get the gunk off. And then ideally I do want to test on something that I'm getting a controlled stroke. So I'm not seeing the paint go whoosh. So when I put it on my skin now, it's not going to leave that ridge. It's not particularly falling into a crevice more than coating the top, I'm getting a more even distribution. I don't typically recommend painting your hand. It's just, yeah, if you have white paper towel, it makes it harder to see what your amount of white is on your brush. It's the same thing with dry brushing. So I'll just do 1/2 of his little snoot for now, so we can see the effect, because I don't think I'll get a line. So I'll let it dry so you can see the effect. It's going to need more than one coat, I suspect. This did. But I always go in conservative, because if I put a ton of white in there and then I'm covering up how I did the little shading there, then I have to do all of that again. If I don't put enough white in, I just have to do that 3 seconds that you just saw again. And that, to me, is more time effective. We definitely are going to need another coat to turn that creamier, even if I do have to come back in and work over it a bit with other paint. I think it's worth it, because there's a whole poison green thing. I mean, I guess it could be a thematic choice, but he does not look like the Easter dragon. Let's say that. He's not bringing you tasty treats at this time. We want to have him look like he's bringing us tasty treats. 491 Phantom heard back from the Reaper help line, well, help email. Brushes were the issue to the corset shortage, and they are working on getting the kits restocked. Yeah, I believe the brushes come from Ireland, so there can be a time delay when they order those. I will just do this side again so we can continue seeing. I added a little bit more white. And I'm doing this with white in this example, as we were trying to make pastel colors, and it's definitely making it more pastel. But you can do this the other way. You can take like a bright, intense color like the Reaper Clears and go over something, you have something that you want it to be red and it's not quite red enough. You can do it to shift colors a little. So I think you can see now a difference between the side where I painted it and the side where I did not. And I am going to have to do a little fixing. It's very pasty now, but it's also way more like a pastel color instead of a poisonous green dragon face. And 491 Phantom says they did say the brushes are there, but it takes time to assemble the kits. Yes, it is kind of a pain in the butt. I'm pretty sure anybody who has to work the kit department doesn't love me so much. So I don't know if that solved all the problems, but it certainly helped. I think I need probably just a lot more teal in there. And then just a touch of like some more green than here, but less green than here, perhaps. Perhaps that is what will work. But that all has to dry before I start touching it again. So I will work on another part for now. It just surprises me how the yellow keeps fooling me like that. It's interesting. I mean, imagine if I had used that. Like that is, I used a bit of that yellow, but that's not the one that I grabbed out of here that I said was way too bright to be a pastel. Oh, and this is one of the paints I didn't shake. So it's got just binders coming out, and it's doing that a little bit. And that's on me because I didn't shake it well enough. You don't have to do this part, but I will put the binder back in if it's not inconvenient. It won't, like your paint's not going to be ruined if you don't bother to do this. And then I will attempt to shake it for real. And this is the thing about color is always relative. It's always in context. So in the context of everything else, where's it? Context of everything else, that gold NMM seems super saturated. But if I put that here, let's try it here. If I put that on, now that's the most saturated thing on here. And if I put red on, or I mean, this is a very canary yellow is a pretty darn saturated yellow. Which is handy. I mean, it's good for mixing. It just didn't work great for me because I'm trying to make pastels. But let's get some, I love this color for mixing highlights, Osirian sand. Osirian sand? I have played Pathfinder, but I don't know all the lingo. And I just can't help thinking there needs to be a little yellow in there. But that's probably enough. Possibly there needs to be a little green in there too, if this is supposed to be light green, right? That seems pretty pastel. I will learn that I am incorrect, but it seems pretty pastel. I'll get a bit of my teal in here. I think that will help. I think I just went too far green. The new highlight color. I think that's a little less noxious. Because when we did the black and white thing, I also felt like his face was not light enough in value. Which you can do the black and white thing without having a crazy camera by using your phone should have a mode where you can either take pictures in black and white, or you can take a picture that you have and convert it to black and white. And that is a good way to check, you know, the value structure of your miniature and whether things look quite as cool and well done and eye-catching and whatnot when you don't have color. Which is not to say that, you know, we aren't using color or something, but you should be able to see shadows and highlights and stuff without color. You should be able to see those things in the black and white version. Yeah, I lost the interior look under the eyelid that I liked. That's the shadow side of the face, so I needed a darker color again. Just a slightly different darker color than last time. So hopefully, by integrating in some of my other colors and toning down the excessively saturated one, hopefully I have created something. Okay, on camera it still looks very, very noxious, but we will see what it looks like later. It may be that I'll need to tone it down again, but it might look different once the wings are in. And the pink is gonna look more like here, so it should tone out as well. The pink is actually very in your face right now. Maybe part of the problem that the color contrast between the complements is so strong that it's bumping the appearance of the green, especially on camera where the camera's trying to balance multiple color information. I will try to remember to take a picture with my phone and show you that. Actually, I guess in theory I could do that right now. I don't think there is enough highlights still. But that is something that I could dress well, like I'm working on scales and things. But I will do the camera thing real quick. There should be enough light, or the right kind of light, to take a picture of him with my iPhone. And am I enough under the lights? Now I'll get all the dust off of my camera screen and see what it looks like when I show you guys. So it does still look a little brighter to me than it does in person. That's interesting. And it's worth, if you're painting for something online, like the quarterly contest, which is different than the Challenge League that we talked about at the beginning of the show. The quarterly contest is everybody paints the same miniature and enters it anonymously, and then Reaper shows them all for votes, and the people who win the top 3 most votes win prizes, and the person who gets the most votes also gets to pick the miniature that everyone is working on for the next contest. So that's kind of fun. And Quindy has just shared a link to the 24th quarterly community contest, which I think the process has changed a little bit. I think instead of just using Facebook and emailing and stuff, that they've got like a website set up to do it through. But if you go to that link, you will learn all the information that I am vaguely not aware of. So I don't know. It may be that the green thing didn't work. It may be that I need to, if I don't look at this pink part, but where I was going with that I got distracted from is if you're entering something like the quarterly contest or another online thing, it's worth doing that now and then. Take a picture with whatever camera you're going to use to take the picture that you submit to the contest. And it's like, in a way, it doesn't matter if it looks right to me in person, if the goal of this is to take a picture of it. It's like when I paint things for Ron, the picture is more important than the figure. Ron is the art director at Reaper. So if I'm painting something for him, it's to go up on the website or like a Kickstarter or something, because they're trying to get you guys interested in it so that you know what it looks like painted. So my goal is to make it look good in the picture that you see. So in a way, it doesn't matter if I think that this looks great in person. If I'm painting this to take a picture of, I should do something different with the face than what I have going on right now. It may still be that it's just a little too intense in color. I don't know. But it may be that the green, it's just too much green. I need to put in more of the colors that are in the body. It's too abrupt to change. Or it may also be that, you can still see this super bright pink, and that's the color complement. But even this lighter pink, the more pastel pink, seems to be doing a peach pink. But that's where the Easter Rocky is now. And I will probably continue to work on him. I don't know for sure if I'll work on him next week, but I probably will. And I will also try to remember to bring up all of my terrible failed oil paintings, so you can see that trying to actually do a thing can go a lot more differently than you thought it would in your head when you're watching the tutorial, you're taking the class, or you're reading the web page where somebody explained how they did whatever. That really is not the same as sitting down and doing it. And even if you've been painting a long time, if you're trying something totally new or even somewhat new, there's no reason to imagine that you're going to be able to do it as easily or as quickly or as well as the person demonstrating the thing to you. So like if I go take a class in I don't know, two brush blending. I don't do two brush blending. I could, even though I know how to blend two other ways pretty well, I can't expect that I'm going to be great at that just because I already have this background of knowledge. That background of knowledge may help, but it's never going to completely replace the need for your hands to learn how to do the thing. Or your eyes. Like in this case, my eyes are learning that saturation is a lot more sensitive at light values than I realized. And so pastels aren't as easy as I thought they would be. I mean, I know all kinds of stuff about color mixing, and I mix colors all the time on here and it works fine. But this pastel thing just turned out to be harder than I realized it would, and I would never know that until I sat down to do it and get it wrong, and that's okay. Hopefully I'll remember the next time that any bit of yellow is going to dive right into your face. Yeah, see, it's working well the way I want on the tail, like that little orangey, yellowy light color on the tail is really drawing a lot of attention there. And that's kind of what I wanted, where this is Poisonous Rocky, and that's not what I want. But we will fix him on a future occasion. If anyone has a request for something I could do on the show or a topic you want me to talk about, please feel welcome to send that to me in the direct message here. Send me a message on the Reaper forums. Contact me on any of my own web pages that Quindy has just shared information about, like, if you go to my blog, there's a contact me section there, or my artist Facebook page. You can direct message me there. I understand that, some people are lurkers and they don't feel comfortable chatting. Some people aren't watching live, so they don't have the opportunity to ask and chat. And I am very happy to take requests, because sometimes I run out of ideas. And I'm like, oh, I have no idea what to do this week. That definitely happens. So I am very interested in knowing what you all would like to see more of. Because I know you like me to mix it up. You don't want me to just paint like one miniature from beginning to end all the time like Anne does. You like that there's different content in the shows. But that does put a little more stress on me than Anne, who just has to pick the next miniature to work on. Well, she's working on like 5 or 6 at a time. I'm not meaning to imply that if you watch Anne's show at 11:30, I'm going to say 11:30 Central, Monday to Fridays, that you will see her painting the same miniature every time, because that is not how she does it. She has a set that she rotates through, so it does get mixed up throughout the week, which you get to watch. And then Luca is another Reaper streamer that you can watch Wednesdays at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And Josh Foreman is the crafty creative. Now, I forgot the name of the show. There's craftiness and there's creativity, because he doesn't just do painting. He makes terrain and he makes maquettes and he does like all kinds of super cool stuff that is both crafty and creative. And it's not all directly related to miniatures, but most of it tracks or parallels in some way that will be useful to you. And those are all the kind of craft shows, I think. Well, Crow's Nest, we don't know what they're doing. They're kind of reformatting. We've only had one show so far. So that is on periodic Monday nights, which I'm guessing, if Crafty Creative. If it was today, that Quindy would have told me to shut up 13 minutes ago. So I'm guessing that the Clever Crow is not on today. And I also have a correction that Luca is at 1 p.m. Central-ish. He starts right after Anne, so when she finishes up, and then he's got to get up and running. So might be a slight delay in between, but there'll be people to hang out with in chat. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about Clever Crow, so I don't think that's today. And then you probably already know when the Reaper shows are, but it's Thursday at 6 p.m. Central is Reaper Live, and that's where you can get all your news about new things coming out and ReaperCon news as we ramp up towards that. And just in general, what Reaper is up to or going to be up to. And then there is Reaper Land, not Reaper Live. Reaper Live is Thursday. Reaper Land is 3 p.m. Central on Friday, and that's a community-focused fun show. Well, also with a Reaper person. Quindy said, "I would never tell you to shut up. I'm slightly nicer than that." I meant gist-wise, not content. You would have said, "Hey, you gotta wrap it up. Wrap it up." So much for your acceptance speech. So yes, that is, what does this camera think of his face? That looks actually much more like what it looks like to me. So it's still like weird, but not noxious. Anyway, that is a problem we will work on solving another day, and I'll see you next week, either working on this or some other thing that I think of or that you request, and I'll see you then. Well, first we'll let Quindy get it right, actually. She is sharing a link for Ask Reaper Anything. You're welcome, Babatube4. Quindy said it would be nice if I had the orchestra play us off when we're taking John Pendrake. Yeah, you'd be working that orchestra pretty hard, I think. Well, it's more you need the orchestra for the lateness of not always starting on time. You need something to entertain us. You need some kind of pre-show warm-up guy like they have in the comedy shows doing some stand-up or something. So we're going to visit Samson Arts this week. So say hi, spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.